Hi everyone, it's John from What Up and welcome back to another video, and if I'm smiling it's because we just watched the Season 2 trailer. Yes, it dropped this morning and we're here to talk all about it. So I'm going to show you the trailer in just a few moments, and then after that we'll go through it frame by frame because there is a ton to unpack, and buckle up. This will likely be a very long video. I should probably do it in parts, but I'm not going to. It's just going to be one big video talking about all of the little Easter eggs in the trailer because there are a ton of them to talk about, and I think Season 2 is going to be an absolute blast. Now, if you're new to the channel, you don't know what we do here, and you may be finding us just because the trailer dropped this morning. We talk about Wheel of Time show news, so anything and everything to do about the Wheel of Time, that's what we talk about. If you like that sort of thing, make sure you subscribe. If you like the video, leave a like as well. And of course, any comments that you may have on anything in the trailer, leave it down below. First off, I want to know what everyone thinks of it. So before we get into the video, I have to give a bit of a spoiler warning because we are talking about the trailer for Season 2. I'm going to pick it apart. I'm going to find all the little tidbits in it. So we're going to ruin a ton of stuff for those of you who haven't read the books or watched the show. So spoiler warning, in today's video, we're talking about the Season 2 trailer for the Wheel of Time. So if you have not watched the first season, that's episodes 1 through 8 on Prime Video, or read the first 3 books, that's The Eye of the World, The Great Hunt, and The Dragon Reborn by Robert Jordan, be forewarned, I may ruin plot points and character arcs from both of those mediums. Alright, let's get on to the trailer, folks.
Everyone has a choice. And every choice has a consequence.
I'm bigger than my body.
We didn't defeat the Dark One. We set him free.
I'm meaner than my demons.
No one should have that much power.
I'm bigger than these walls.
Together we face the impossible. But now in our separate corners of the world.
I'm bigger than my body.
Protecting Rand, guiding him, that is the only thing that matters. You can't control him.
You know you have something inside you. Something that calls for blood.
I want to know how to control it.
The last battle's coming.
The whole world will be ours.
And all the kids cried out, please stop. I can't help this awful energy.
If our friends are in trouble, why would I ever stay here?
You have no conception of the power they wield.
You can't do this by yourself.
There are many paths to walk through the night.
It's not always the most powerful who write history. It's the ones who survive.
I'm tired of being a spoke in the wheel.
Who is in control?
You're not a spoke, boy. You are the water that turns the wheel itself.
All right, so what did you folks think of the trailer? I thought it was really, I'm going to use the word neat. I always use the word neat, but I thought it was absolutely amazing. Leaps and bounds ahead of the trailer for Season 1 and any of the teasers we've gotten so far. This was edited together in a fantastic way. The song choice by Halsey, I believe, was absolutely immaculate. I loved that. I like the flavor text that went out through the trailer, but there is a ton to unpack. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this is going to be a long one, so buckle up if you may have to watch it in shifts. I'm going to be talking for quite some time. I'm likely going to be doing this for much longer than any of my normal videos. I'm not going to split it up. Now, as we go through the trailer, I'm going to go through it in chronological order. So I'm going to start at the beginning of the trailer and work my way to the end. There are a number of scenes that do fit together, and I will talk about them, but I'm not going to try to jumble them together because if I do that, we may lose our place. I may miss a few things, and I don't want to do that. I have it set up in chronological order here for you folks. So if you're watching the trailer on a second device, you can sort of kind of follow along with what I'm talking about. Now, there's also some things in this trailer that we've seen before, in some cases many times before, like the shot of Moiraine, different promotional materials and different teasers and whatnot. I will likely spend less time on that than the new stuff. I know not everybody who's watching this video or is new to the channel has seen these things before, but I've done videos on pretty much everything that's been released for season 2 and 3. So I will mention things, I will talk about it a bit, but if I'm not covering it as in-depth as you like, you know, there's another video on that somewhere in my channel, and I'm sure I will cover it there. So, this particular first shot of Moiraine wearing the Kisara, that's the blue stone in the middle of her forehead, that she uses in the books to focus her powers, to eavesdrop and do different things like that. Absolutely immaculate. Of course, she's always wearing blue because she's Blue Aja, and this is likely in the Foregate of Cairhien. Now, we do know in the second season she is traveling home, so she is going back to Cairhien and she is seeing family. Not sure if that's before or after she regains her power, because we know at some point or another she's likely to regain the ability to channel, because Ashamiel just tied a shield off on her ability to touch the true source at the end of season 1. She's not actually stilled, and that's been pretty much all but confirmed by the showrunner and different people that have talked about it. Not in plain language, but in so many words, they've pretty much said that she's likely not stilled. They've never said that. So she may or may not have the ability to channel here, but she is going home, and this is likely in the Foregate of Cairhien. So we know for a fact we're getting Tar Valon, we're getting Falma, we're getting Cairhien for locations in the second season, and we're probably going to get 1 or 2 more locations. I don't think we're getting Tyr exactly. I think we may get parts of the Waste, at least at first, and some other villages along the way, but we won't be getting a ton of locations because they only have so many spots they can shoot in for each season. All right, this next shot is, of course, of the White Tower in Tar Valon, and if you look very carefully on the 3rd or 4th story down, you're going to see a blue dress or somebody in a blue dress. I've watched this back quite a few times and zoomed in. I believe that to be Moiraine, but I'm not 100% on that because it's hard to tell who this is, and they're walking with someone. We do know that a lot of the scenes take place in Tar Valon. We know that Rand, from shots in the trailer later on, does make it to Tar Valon and does talk with some people there. So she's likely walking with either Rand or Swan the Amerlin, or maybe Lan. One of the 3 is my guess. Either way, Moiraine does make it to Tar Valon during the second season, and this is an absolutely gorgeous shot of the White Tower. I think they've really upped their game, at least as far as visual effects go, and we're going to see that as the trailer carries on. And we have a shot of Moiraine in the bath. Now, for those of you who've read the books, having baths is sort of an inside joke. There are certain characters that love to have baths, Elaine Trecan being one of them, and it's mentioned a lot during the books, and it's kind of a thing that fans laugh about. So we're likely going to get a couple of different bath scenes every single season. But what's interesting about this one is Moiraine is actively crying in the tub, and it's something that she doesn't do very often. She very rarely lets her emotions go. Now, of course, in the first season, she was a little bit more emotional than she was described in the books, because it'd be really hard to watch a bunch of robot people on TV going through the motions without showing any emotion at all. And that wouldn't be fun for anybody, but this is pretty big deal for Moiraine to let her emotions fully go like this. And this is likely close to the start of the season after she's lost her ability to channel, and she's kind of dealing with that. Maybe this is back in Valdara, maybe it's in Along the Road, but either way, I think she's dealing with the loss of the 1 power here. We have this shot of Rand. Now, this is likely tied to the shots of him tied to the wheel, and I think that's going to be pretty important for the second season. Now, we're going to talk about the wheel shots later on near the end of the video, because that happens at the end of the trailer, but they're likely in Teleran Rioid, the World of Dreams, and we're likely going to see a couple of different dream sequences, especially considering who we're getting introduced in the second season. Lanfear, Daughter of the Night, and Lord, or Lady rather, of the World of Dreams. She is the most powerful person to ever walk the World of Dreams, at least we think anyway, and that's to do with some revelations we've had in the last year or so, but I won't talk about those, so I didn't spoilers. All I will say is that she's incredibly powerful there, and she claims it as her own domain. So we're likely going to see Rand do a few different scenes in the World of Dreams. And what's interesting about this is the coat he's wearing. It's an incredibly fine coat, and you can see the rising sun on the back of Cairhien. So this might be him on the road to Cairhien with Selene, and he's having a dream, and he's wearing the clothing of a lord. And if you get to the front of him, he's wearing a really nice coat there. Now, we know that at the end of season 1, he was on his own. At some point or another, and I think it's kind of hinted at in this trailer, he's likely going to rescue Selene, who is Lanfear, and we'll get to see some scenes between them. Won't happen exactly the same way. I don't think we're going to get the mirror worlds. I believe that will be cut out. However, he definitely will pick her up along the road, and either I think she's gotten him this coat, and this is in the real world along the way to Cairhien, or in the world of dreams. One or the other. Either way, really neat. And I like the fact that it's got the rising sun in the back of it, showcasing Kyrian. Really, really very cool. Now, this particular shot of the Fade here, this goes together with some stuff later on in the trailer with, I believe, either Rand or Lan fighting the Fade. And that's kind of interesting because we do know that Rand is going to hook up with Moiraine and Lan in the second season and travel with them. We don't know when it's going to happen. I had sort of assumed, and I think everyone else did as well, that it would be somewhere along the same time after that Moiraine had gotten her ability to channel back. Now, we don't entirely know if that's true or not, but there are a couple of shots in this trailer of Rand fighting a Fade and a couple shots of Lan fighting a Fade. Now, Daniel Henney, who plays Lan, has said in an interview that one of his favorite scenes in Season 2 is where he's fighting two Fades at once, and he can't wait for us to see that. So, I think they're from completely different times. I'm going to get into that later on when I talk about the scene with Rand fighting the Fade, but I think Lan and Moiraine are on their own. Moiraine does not have the ability to channel yet, and Lan has to protect them from shadow spawn that's being sent to them. I think Rand is on his own, and when he's fighting the Fade later on, we'll see that. I think it's him either saving or protecting Selene. Either way, really very neat. Now, we get a real good shot of Ferris here. In the first season, he was billed as the Dark One. So, in the books, for the first few books, everyone thought that Ishamael was the Dark One until, of course, it was a big reveal that Ishamael was actually one of the Forsaken, posing as the Dark One, and he was more than half mad with the idea that he was actually the Dark One incarnate. I think we saw all we're going to see of that in the first season. I think in the second season, they're really going to lean into the Forsaken. We know for sure we're getting Lanfear or Selene. And we know for sure we're getting Ferris back as Ishamael. But what I wanted to show here is the absolute modern dress he's wearing. We saw that in the first season. It's because he's from the Age of Legends. And the Age of Legends is supposed to be sort of like our modern day without any of the problems we have. No wars, other than the War of Power, of course, when that happened. But no famine, no disease, no hate, no bigotry. It was supposed to be a really great time for everyone. And it mirrored a lot of our current things. Now, we know that Robert Jordan had written the Wheel of Time to be in our world because there were a number of real-world artifacts in there. And I think this is kind of a nod to that, him wearing sort of a dress shirt that you would not be uncommon to see someone wearing in our modern-day world. Now, we get a shot of Egwene here, and Egwene is weaving something, and the flows here are still fairly colorless. Now, we've talked about this a couple of times here on the channel, but I believe that as the girls get more and more experience, we're going to see more and more colors in the weaves because things are from their point of view, and we're going to start seeing how things are weaved together. They are able to differentiate between the different types of weaves. You'll start to see different colors, and we see that later on in the trailer for certain things, which is really very neat. But what's interesting about this shot here is this sort of looks like the accepted testing chamber. I'm not saying it is because we don't see any of the same columns or towers or arches rather in the background, but sort of the same rough-hewn stone, sort of the same torches in the walls. So either she is learning to channel in the tower, it's my guess, or this is the accepted testing chamber and she may be actually a part of Nynaeve's test because they do need certain Aes Sedai to run the test. And because she's her friend, maybe she'll be allowed to attend. Now, if you take a look, there are 3 strands, 2 strands coming in from each side and 1 in front of her. It's likely that she's part of a circle in this particular photo because instead of channeling multiple weaves at once, I would say that it's multiple threads of power coming out from her or into her as she's learning or using power in a circle. One way or the other, not entirely sure on that. Could be completely wrong, but that's my take on this particular photo. And either way, I'm really excited to see Elaine, Egwene, and Nynaeve start to learn the One Power because I really would love people who haven't read the books to get more acquainted with the hard magic system, so to speak, that the Wheel of Time has. They may soften it just a bit for the show, but that was something I really enjoyed, was the rules behind the magic system. I really like that. Let me get a shot of Liandrin, Kate Fleetwood. I can't say enough great things about this actress. She is absolutely phenomenon. She made the fandom love Liandrin. Liandrin is one of the most reviled characters in the Wheel of Time. It's not someone anyone would say is their favorite character when they read the books. But in the show, she is definitely a fan favorite. This looks to be in the same chamber. Maybe not. Maybe that's a little more rough-hewn than this, but this definitely looks to be in the tower. I think this is a shot, actually, that is coupled with a shot that's later on in the trailer where she's standing in front of the apparatus that melts the Aes Sedai rings. And we're going to talk about that in a bit because I think that's pretty important to some of the plot lines for season 2. Now, finally, we have this this is something we've seen before. This is the Dark Friends social. It's been talked about a number of different times on social media. The showrunners mentioned it. It's not going to be exactly the same as it in the books. You're not going to have a ton of people around. This is more of a gathering of people talking, and you can tell that some of them are White Cloaks, some of them are Shinerans, some of them are Aes Sedai. You can even see some of the bright colors of what I believe to be the Traveling People or the Seanchan, because they both have very bright colored clothing. Either way, it's really, really very neat, and it showcases the fact that Dark Friends can come from any part of the world, and I'm kind of excited to see this, and perhaps Ferris showing up and talking to them all, and they still think that he's the Dark One. Either way, we've talked about this before on the channel, and it is a nice shot, and I'm glad they're including the Dark Friends social in the show. All right, so then we have a shot of Ferris in, again, very modern clothing. So Shamael's standing there, and he's channeling the One Power, and this is in a big circle around him. I'm going to say this is likely in the Eye of the World, so where they had the big battle at the end of Season 1, where we saw the seal underneath him sort of crack and splinter. By the time we talked about it, there were enough cracks for the number of Forsaken that were in the book series. We don't know if we're getting the full 13 in the show or not, but it was theorized that those cracks in that seal are what allow the rest of the Forsaken to sort of escape into the real world. Now, we do know we're getting a second Forsaken in the second season. I don't know about a third or a fourth or any more than that. We only know of 2, and that is Lanfear, or as she calls herself, Selene, is one of her many aliases. This is, in my opinion, a likely shot of Ferris or Shamael releasing her the rest of the way, because we get to see a shot of her a little bit later covered in blood, and we're going to talk about that in a second. But if you take a look at Ferris's or Shamael's left hand, you see sort of a gold circlet. Now, that was something that both the dragon and other people that were in the Age of Legends shot in the first season, as well as a Shamael in the first season, were wearing. So it is likely some sort of Angriel or Sa'angriel that was commonplace during the Age of Legends, but no longer commonplace in the modern day in Randland. So either way, we see most of the shots with him with that around his hand, and I think it's going to become important and probably explained during the second season. Now, again, we have a few different shots like this throughout the trailer, and this is, I believe, when the Shadow Spawn or the Fades are attacking Moiraine and Lan on the road, and I think they're alone. She, I would say, does not have the ability to channel back just yet because she is not shown using the One Power, and Lan seems to be doing most of the heavy lifting when it comes to the Shadow Spawn fighting them, so he's likely protecting her when she can't channel. And we do get to see a couple of really cool shots of Daniel Henney later on doing some flips while he's fighting a Fade, which is super neat. Now, this I wanted to include because it shows that the visual effects for the second season have sort of upped their game. Now, in the first season, I had a hard time with some of the CG, especially in the later episodes, because the budget really wasn't there and they weren't doing a very good job. They've had a ton of time between the end of the first season and second season coming out, and part of that was I was told to get some of the CG and visual effects right. And this shot of Shamael sort of turning into what looks like really sun-dried mud and just like kind of blowing away was absolutely amazing. And I'm one of those people, I don't like CG, I like practical effects unless I can't tell it's CG. And this one, you know it's CG because this doesn't really happen in real life, but it was done so well, I had to include it. I was really impressed with it. Then we get a shot of this. I wanted to include this because this is one of the pictures that Prime released in the last day or so promoting this trailer coming out, and it's of Nynaeve, who's played by Zoe Robbins, likely in the tower, and she's talking with Alana, so that is Priyanka Bose in front of her there, and they're sort of chatting, and I think we're going to get to see some of the training, and I would guess we're not likely to get many more Aes Sedai introduced in the coming seasons. We'll still probably keep that core few characters because there's 2,782 named characters in the Wheel of Time. You cannot have all of them on screen at once. They're likely going to recycle them. So I think Alana's going to be teaching some of her classes. And no doubt in my mind, she'll be pushing her and Egwene both towards green. So kind of neat either way. Now, this is the shot I was talking about. Now, this particular scene is likely Lanfear being birthed out of the Dark One's prison into the world. That's why she's covered in blood. Really very neat. We've seen this scene a couple of times before with a hand reaching out to her, and there was a lot of debate whether or not the hand was either Rand's or Shamael's, and that was never truly resolved, I don't believe, because there was a lot of pros and cons to both and a lot of evidence for both. I would like to think that this is likely a shot of when she comes into the world, because she's completely covered in blood, and that would be a really interesting way to birth the Forsaken into our world. Now, let me know what you folks think in the comments down below, if I'm a little bit out to lunch in that one or not, because that is a bit of a stretch. However, I think it would be a really cool thing to include in the second season. All right, now I want to talk just a bit about the Seanchan. Now, these are Dame. They are the channelers. So you have the Dame, you have the Sul'dam. Sul'dam are women who control the Dame. So they control the women who can channel, and they're controlled via a bracelet and a collar. So in the book series, it was a silvery leash. So it was a silvery bracelet around the Sul'dam that connected to a silvery collar around the Dame. They've changed that a bit in the show to have no leash between them. So the bracelet and the collar are still there, so it's that big thing around their neck is the collar, and the Sul'dam do have bracelets, but there's no leash, which, I mean, as far as the ability to move around on set and act and do different things, I think cutting out the leash is a good idea, because that was something that did happen in the books at one point or another. There were leashes without chains, but most of them had chains. And then some people have mentioned what's around the Seanchan's face. Now, we don't really know what that is. When we saw them at the end of the first season, a lot of people thought that that was the collar. We've been told that that's not the collar by Rafe Judkins, the showrunner, in a tweet, that it's something different. And the closest thing that I could find to it is an iron muzzle. So a lot of slave owners used them to restrict their slaves' ability to speak or to eat as punishment. And considering that the Dame are basically slaves, they're not even considered people, they're considered property, I would say that this is a likely nod to that and to where Jordan grew up. Either way, I think it's very visually appealing. I think it's very cool to see on screen. And it also showcases the absolute brutality of the Seanchan, and I think they're going to lean into that. I was wondering how they were going to handle it, if they were going to shy away from it a little bit, but I think they're going to absolutely lean into the brutality of the Seanchan and how they consider people who can channel just not people at all. Little bit difficult to witness on screen, but I think an important part of the Seanchan's culture to basically show that they are not the same as everyone else in Randland. Now, this particular scene, you see the weaves coming around the forearms of the Dame. Now, we've seen that again in that little teaser that we got last night that I was going to talk about, but it's part of the trailer, so we'll talk about it today. That is where the bracelet, it's sort of like a bracer. It goes from the wrist almost to the elbow on the Sul'dam is, and I'm going to guess that that's where the weaves are going to come from all the Dame, because that's where the bracelet is, and the bracelet interacts with the Dame's ability. It's sort of an involuntary circle, if you will, between the Sul'dam and the Dame, forcing the Dame to use the power. So I think that's why the weaves are coming from their forearms, because that's where the bracelet is. And in this particular scene, they're blasting a group of soldiers at night. Now, I had a hard time getting the screenshots in this, so some of them are going to be blurry and a bit out of focus. However, you did get to see Uno standing in front, played by Guy Roberts, and then as you zoom in, you get to see Ingtar and Perrin. We know Perrin is sort of traveling with the Shienarans in the second season, and a lot of the Great Hunt storyline is being taken just by Perrin and the Shienarans, searching for the horn and the dagger, and it's really interesting in this particular scene because we've seen promotional material before where the Seanchan are fighting the Shienarans at night. I think this particular scene is probably the tail end of that fight. I think the Shienarans sort of get into battle with the Seanchan soldiers, and then they get tired of fighting, so the Seanchan call in the big guns, the Dame and the Sul'dam, and they basically take them out. We've also seen shots of Uno being knelt in front of Suroth. This is likely just prior to that. They're probably captured, made to swear the oaths at some point or another, which is exactly kind of what happens to most people in the books that encounter the Seanchan. They're made to swear oaths, and once they swear the oaths, Seanchan believe them and just let them go. As long as they've sworn the oaths and they can't channel, they're free to go about their lives as long as they adhere to the oaths. If they're caught breaking them, of course, things happen to them. But either way, I think this is just prior to that scene. All right, so now we have this particular shot, and the next one that I'm going to show you here are of the door to the accepted testing chambers. And I wanted to show you this and this because it's the same type of carving, filigree, and decoration that's on the box that houses the Horn of Valere that we see a little bit later on in the trailer, and we've seen in promotional material yesterday. There has been a number of discussions about if this particular chamber was the accepted testing chamber, and I think this trailer puts it to rest. I guess that it was during the Q&A when Rafe Judkins and Sarah Nakamura were sitting in the accepted testing chamber for JordanCon, answering some questions, and it looks like I was right, so there's that. Now, this is when Nynaeve gets to actually do her accepted test, because we've seen her both in Novice White, like she's wearing here now, as well as in the rainbow bands around the cuffs and the hem of her dress, which showcases that she's an accepted. And she also has that ring with an empty stone and some other promotional material. She's definitely going through her accepted test, and I believe there are shots of it in this trailer. We're going to talk about them in a bit, but you get to see that archway in the background that was showcased in the Q&A with Rafe and Sarah, and the actual chamber itself. Now, in the book series, the chamber looks quite a bit different than this. Yes, it's rough-hewn stone. Yes, it's in the bowels of the tower, but these arches are silvery, and they touch one another. This, of course, is artistic license. They've changed it a bit here, and I, for one, am pretty impressed with the change. I have never shied away from them making changes to source material, because this is another turning of the wheel. It is something different than the books, and something to enjoy in addition to, not in place of. And I think this, and I said it before, it looks a lot like the temples in Conan, and I think that's either unintentionally perfect or on purpose, as a nod to the fact that Robert Jordan wrote some of the Conan books. So if you watch the Conan movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the temples of the serpent that he kind of breaks into and steals the rubies and things like that from, they look exactly like this. And I did a whole video talking about that before, and either it's intentional, which awesome if it is, but if it's unintentional, that's even better, because this is, in my opinion, a nod to the fact that he wrote some of the Conan books. Either way, really very cool, and we will get to see the accepted test on screen, which I'm looking forward to, because the way will come back but once, be steadfast. I can't wait to see that. Now, this here is probably the best moment of the entire trailer for Matt Hatchell in the Dusty Wheel. It's our first glimpse at live-action Lanfear. Of course, she shows up as Celine, and then later on we'll probably, I would assume at some point during Season 2, learn that she's Lanfear. But this is Natasha O'Keefe. It was leaked by Watt Series a number of weeks ago that she was playing Lanfear, and there was a lot of debate for a very long time. We kind of narrowed Lanfear down to a couple of different actresses, and Natasha was one of them, but in my opinion, after seeing her in this trailer in costume as Lanfear, there's no one more perfect to play Lanfear than her. That raven hair, I think she looks absolutely amazing, and I can't wait to see some of the scenes between her and Rand, because let's face it, in the book series, she was a little unhinged. She loved Rand to the point of obsession because she loved the dragon to the point of obsession, and didn't matter if he was bumbling and unsure of himself, she loved that about him. If he was confident and protective, she loved that about him. If he was angry, she loved that about him. She just pretty much loved everything about Rand all the time. And there are a couple of scenes involving her much later in the book series that I can't wait to see on screen, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to cut them. They can't, and they're going to be absolutely amazing. Either way, I'm pretty excited. Natasha O'Keefe is Lanfear. I think she's going to do a fantastic job. Now, this is something that I immediately picked up on watching the trailer, and I don't know if anyone else did, and I don't know if it's a big deal to anyone else, but Rand walking here down the hallway to meet the Amyrlin, because this is the same structure and behind as some of the shots with Swan Sanche, so he's definitely going to meet the Amyrlin. Look at him. That's Cat crosses the courtyard. We get to see Cat crosses the courtyard on the screen. I'm really hoping Lan gets to teach him just a little bit before he does this. If he's doing Cat crosses the courtyard, I'm going to assume at some point or another he spent some time in the tower training with the warders instead of at Faldera, so they're kind of transposing those things. And I want to see him just arrogant as shit when he talks to the Amyrlin. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. Like, arrogant but respectful. That's pretty much how it came off in Faldera when he talked with her. But Cat crosses the courtyard. I picked up on this right away, and I was pretty excited about that. And this is when he's going to meet the Amyrlin, because if you take a look at the blue shirt he's wearing there, it's the same shirt later on in the trailer when he's actually speaking with Swan in what appears to be her private chambers. It's not exactly the Hall of the Tower, but same type of throne, same everything else, different venue. likely her private chambers, but really cool nonetheless. Now, I had to include this because this is a shot of Tar Valon in the White Tower at night, and one of the things that Prime and the Wheel of Time got right was the sets. The sets are absolutely gorgeous. Now, this isn't a physical set here. This is CG, of course. They didn't build a whole city, but the way they matched up the way the CG and the wide shots of the sets with the actual on-set portions they built in the backlots of Jordan Studio, I had to mention this because they did a fantastic job. It's not just the actors and the actresses and the production team, it's also the crew. The crew make the show. They do a lot of this stuff. The VFX artists do a lot of this stuff. And I hate CG, but this is really good. And hats off to them. This is really absolutely fantastic. Now, this here is likely another shot of that late night scene with Moiraine and Lan when they get attacked by Shadow Spawn. We've seen this in a couple of other teasers before, like little short clips and pictures of it. And I am more and more convinced that she does not have her power at this point, and that Lan is doing, like I said earlier, all the heavy lifting and protecting them until she gets some of her power back. But we've seen in the poster for season 2 that she has a knife, and she's holding the knife out. I suspect that we'll get to see a little bit of badass Moiraine knifing some people, and that might lead to a scene we see later on in the teaser with Nynaeve training with the warders, because she may say, you may not always have access to the power, you should have to be able to learn to defend yourself, and there's precedent for that in the books. Moiraine knifes somebody in New Spring, and I can't wait to see her do it again and be all badass on the screen for season 2. This, I hope, is a shot with Lan and Rand. I want to see Lan and Rand because the background looks like it's the tower. I want to see them together, and I want to see the training and the mentorship that Lan gives all of the boys in the first couple of books. I want to see that on screen because to me it was a big part of the first few books, and I really hope we get to see a super cool 80s training montage between Lan and Rand where he's teaching them the sword, teaching him warder ways and whatnot before he sees the Amyrlin. That's one of my hopes for season 2. I don't care if it's 30 seconds or a minute of the entire season. I'd be really happy if we got that. And I definitely, in my head, will be playing the Rocky music as they're going to it, if that's how they decide to handle it. And again, this here is another shot of Moiraine probably still not having the power. So this looks to be in the White Tower, and she's a little bit frazzled and unhinged at this point as well. And I personally am associating the not cool, not calm, not collected together Moiraine with the fact that she doesn't have access to the power, because that would do a number on pretty much anyone. So I'm wondering if perhaps she still does not have access to power when she goes to the White Tower. She might be going there searching for answers, and she may get some in the tower, and along the way meet Rand, and that's what Rand's doing in the tower with them, and they travel together afterwards. Either way, I'm not 100% sure on that. But I would like to think that all of the shots we've seen of Rosamund Pike playing Moiraine, where she's incredibly emotional, is likely shots of her without access to one power. It's my guess anyway. And we have this one here, shot of Seanchan, the Amyrlin. The costumes. I can't get enough of the costumes for season 2. I've mentioned it before, and I'll say it again. They are leaps and bounds ahead of the costumes in season 1, and the costumes in season 1 were great. They were really fantastic. They were really, really well done. But season 2, man, everybody's just dressed so well, and you get to see some of those tattoos on her chest, which we got to see a release from Prime Video not too long ago. I'm going to say a couple of months now. Really release some of the tattoos on Swan's arms and her back, and they basically tell the story, her whole story, and I think that's really very neat. And with her connection to the sea and whatnot, I would say it's likely due to an influence by of Windfinders and other of the Anthamaria on the Terran culture. Either way, really very neat, and I can't wait to see more of that in season 2. Now, this is Rand channeling. Now, we've seen a few shots of him in what appeared to be a kind of rusted, broken down inn or barn. I'm going to say this is likely a barn. He did some traveling rough in the books, and I probably am going to say we're going to see that in season 2 of him channeling and trying to control the power. Now, I honestly think that some of these scenes where he's learning to control the power when he can't are going to be some of the most powerful for Yosha in the second season. I don't 100% know for sure if that's the case, but I can't wait to see him just absolutely freak out as he's trying to use the one power. It's going to be pretty interesting either way. All right, so now we're jumping into Perrin just a bit. So we got a shot of Perrin. We've seen this in the promotional material that the Wheel of Time released in the last couple of days, but now we have a better idea of what it is. He's actually speaking with one of the wolves. I'm hoping this is Hopper, and I'm hoping they actually showcase them speaking together to one another as like a voiceover or whatnot. I really hope that's the case. And then we get a good shot of Perrin's eyes turning golden for the first time. So he's actually embracing his wolf brother nature for season 2, and that's going to start the struggle. So we've already seen that in the poster, he has the hammer on his side, and he'll likely have the struggle between axe and hammer. He got the axe at the end of season 1 rather than at the beginning, and he's going to pick up the hammer somewhere along the way. So we'll see the struggle between the axe and the hammer with Perrin in season 2. And we're also going to see the struggle with him accepting becoming a wolf brother. Now, I'm going to guess, and this is just a guess on my part, but because of the truncated timelines and the compressed nature of the show, likely his struggle with both the axe, the hammer, and being a wolf brother are going to be very, very short. There'll be some character development and stuff involved, of course, but I think we're going to see that stuff resolve itself more than likely by the end of the second season, rather than over multiple seasons or like it was in the book series, multiple books. I think we'll see that stuff resolve fairly quickly, because it's one of those things where it doesn't need to drag on forever. Now, this is one of the more interesting shots of the trailer that I was really excited about. I think Rand is channeling here. I don't think it's Moiraine. I think it's Rand, and he's got her around the neck. So I think at one point or another, when they finally meet up in the second season, she's probably talking to him about being the dragon and what he has to do, and he likely does not like that very much and probably gets pretty angry. He denied it for a long time in the book series before it finally kind of clicked in his head that he has a duty, and he has to do what's best for the world. I think we're going to see some of that in the second season. I think we're going to see a lot of angry Rand for a fair bit in season 2, which is pretty exciting because he did some pretty unhinged stuff in the books that didn't really align with him later on. So I gave spoiler warnings for Up to the Dragon Reborn. In the Dragon Reborn, for example, he did some pretty nasty stuff that they had to walk back, so to speak, in the 4th book and beyond, because he wasn't quite there yet in terms of his madness. And I think we're going to start seeing some of the madness quite early in the show, and this might be part of it. Now we've had confirmation from Rafe Judkins, the showrunner, that some of his favorite scenes in season 2 have to do with after Egwene is captured. And this just goes to show, we've seen this in some other shots in the trailer where Egwene is fighting the Seanchan after coming out of a Waygate, that we are going to see the scenes where she is captured by the Seanchan, and we're going to see the scenes where she's forced to do different things. And you can tell by the amount of blood on her cheek, how beat up she is, and the bloodshot, like her bloodshot eyes. She likely is fighting for control every step of the way, like she did in the book series, which makes her release that much sweeter and her revenge that much sweeter. And I can't wait to see sort of Super Saiyan Egwene just kind of leveling the Seanchan in the second season, because I think we're going to see some of that. And the caption "Kill them all" underneath with this, oh man, it's one of those things. I can't wait to see it on screen. Now, this goes along with Nynaeve's accepted test. She's in her shift here, which is part of the accepted test. They strip them down, they take off all their clothes to do so, and she's completely covered in blood. Now, Rafe Judkins had mentioned a number of different times that we're going to see a lot of blood in this accepted chamber, and this is in the actual chamber itself. So she likely comes out of the arches covered in blood from something that she had done, and she's absolutely horrified by it. And remember, there's 3 arches, so they got to go through 3 separate times, and so I think she's going to come out of one arch just horrified at things she had done in there, and they're sending her back in, and it's going to showcase the absolute brutality and the determination it takes to become an accepted and then an Aes Sedai. Either way, that sequence is probably going to be one of my favorites for the second season. Now here is the dagger. You know, that dagger that everyone said, well, Moiraine healed Matt of the connection to the dagger in season 1 and we'll never see it again. Well, here it is again in season 2. What she did in season 1 was much akin to what she did in the books. She did what she could, but it takes a full circle of some very powerful people. None of them Yellow Aja, by the way. None of them in the book series were Yellow Aja that healed Matt. And Matt still connected to the dagger, still having some problems because he's still staring at it here, and this is within the tower. So we know that Matt's in the tower in season 2. That's been confirmed for quite some time. Now we know that he's there because of the dagger, that the dagger will make its way there, and that he will likely have to be healed. So I'm wondering if perhaps, just perhaps, that Fane leaves the dagger behind by accident, or it gets taken from him early on in the second season, and Moiraine and Lan bring the dagger to the White Tower so Matt's connection can be severed from it, and that's where they meet Rand, and Rand spends his time in the tower and gets to talk with the Amyrlin, and we get that cat crosses the courtyard scene. So I'm wondering if maybe we don't get a reunion of sorts much earlier in the second season than we all expect. I'm not entirely sure on that, but let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section, because I'm still trying to piece together how all these puzzle pieces are fitting. We know that Matt's in the tower. We know the girls are in the tower. We know that the girls leave the tower along with Leandrin to go to Falma. We know that Rand makes it to the tower at some point or another, and we know that also Moiraine and Lan are going to be there. So I don't know if they're going to be at the same time or different times. Either way, really very neat. Now, this is another shot of Lanfear and Rand, and it looks like she's using the one power on him. Now, I don't know if this is compulsion. I don't know if she is just wrapping him in weaves, and it's kind of a neat little thing. Either way, I think that the scenes between the two of them are going to be absolutely explosive in the second season. And for people who haven't read the books, I think they're already in the trailer doing Lanfear justice on just how, I don't want to use the word attached, but just how attached she is to the dragon, and how much she absolutely is just obsessed with him. So really very neat. But the weaves themselves, we've seen this throughout the trailer so far. The weaves around Rand's hands, the weaves that the Seanchan Dame are using, and now the weaves that we assume Lanfear is using, and the weaves that that were wrapped around Rand, Moiraine. There's a lot more color, and we've been told to expect color and differences in the weaves in the second season. And I think the channeling itself is going to look a lot better. The trade-off for that, of course, is more time in post-production, especially in today's world post-COVID, where there is a lot of pressure on VFX houses to finish this stuff and finish it quickly, so we may have longer gaps between seasons. And I know we had a very long gap between season 1 and season 2 right now, but I think that may become the norm if they're going to up their game like this, because I'm pretty impressed so far. And then this, we have to talk about this. This is one of those things where I thought that Rand would definitely be in the tower, and that's because Logain is there. They took Logain to the tower to be gentled in the first season, and of course he was gentled prior to that. It was a little bit different than the books, but he was just wandering the tower grounds afterwards. So I think that while Rand is in the tower, he's wearing that same blue shirt that he had in the meeting with the Amyrlin and in the cat crosses the courtyard scene to talk with Logain here. I think Logain may take the place of Asmodean in the show. He may take the place of Rand's teacher. He may be able to tell him a bit about the power, and maybe, just maybe, Logain may take the place of some other fairly important male channelers later on, because let's face it, they're going to amalgamate a bunch of different people. And with the amount that they're pushing Logain, maybe we're going to see something just a bit different for his storyline. But this is Rand talking to him, and I can only guess what the next line is. You can learn to control it by... what? How do you learn to control it? By not letting it control you. That's the way the men channel the one power, and I think you're going to see a lot more of that in the second season. The differences between the male and the female, half the true source, you're going to see all of that in the second season, and I really hope that they start explaining it a bit more, because I love that part. I love the whys and hows and the little nitpicky rules and behind everything. I'm a sucker for that in any show, and for the Wheel of Time especially. I can't wait to see that on screen. All right, so we're a little over halfway there. We've talked about it a lot so far in the video and the trailer. I've gone through a bunch of different scenes and explained a bunch of different things, but let me know in the comments down below, what are you thinking so far? Do you agree with a lot of my theories and things that are happening and things that we've seen before? Do you think things are going to be a bit different? As you're watching the video, stop, pause, comment, let me know what you're thinking, because none of this is set in stone. We really don't know exactly everything just yet. I'm just making some educated guesses and things that I expect or would love to see, and I want to hear your folks' input on that as well. Now, we're getting into some of the Seanchan stuff now in the trailer, which, and we've already talked about the Dame, the Soul Dame a little bit here, but we have the Palanquin in the background there with Suroth, and we've seen the images with Shamael, and who we think is Suroth's voice, played by Guy Roberts' wife. Guy Roberts plays Uno, by the way, and Jessica Boone is his wife. She plays Alwyn, we believe. That hasn't been confirmed yet, but we're pretty sure it's Alwyn, Suroth's voice. So we do know that Shamael is going to be with the Seanchan. Is he taking the place of some other notable Forsaken, kind of worming their way into the hierarchy? I don't know. I don't exactly know how this is going to play out. But I do expect to see less Forsaken on screen than we have in the books, because it's just too many. Too many of them were a little 2D in the books, a little flat. They didn't really pop, so to speak, didn't have great storylines. So I think we're going to see less of them, and some of their storylines kind of melded or merged into other people. Either way, this looks to be the aftermath of the battle between the Shienarans and the Seanchan, when the Dame kind of, just took them all out. And this is pre the scene where they're kneeling Uno. So we've seen images before where they're kneeling Uno down in front of Suroth. I think this is just pre that, after the battle, but pre making Uno kneel before her. Really, really neat. Now, part of the scene is this. We have seen these fingernails, and one of the things in the book series that we've seen a whole bunch of the Seanchan is their lacquered nails, or their nails as denoting their rank. So it's not just their hair color, their hair cuts, it's also their nails. And these are retractable. We've all wondered, how is this going to work? How are they going to fight? How are they going to do different things on screen? Well, the nails are retractable. We've seen them. They're like a switchblade, which is super cool, and I can't wait to see that on screen. But either way, this is how they're handling the nails, and I think it's a smart move, because having an actor or an actress try not to get these in the way as they're acting and doing things physically, yeah, that might be a little bit of a problem. But if they're retractable, very cool. Now, this is the shot where we get to see Shamael to Suroth's left, and who we believe is Alwyn, her voice, played by Jessica Boone, to Suroth's right. So we definitely know that the Forsaken have wormed their way into the Seanchan nobility, into the blood itself, and I think the storyline is going to be a bit different there, but I'm excited to see it, because I think the Seanchan are going to be a bit more to the forefront far earlier than they were in the book series, because let's face it, they were sort of there and then gone pretty quickly, and they didn't come back till much, much later. The show doesn't have that kind of time. We're going to see them up front and center a lot more often, I think. Now, this is our first real good look at High Lord Turok. Now, High Lord Turok is holding here in front of him the box that contains the Horn of Valere. This was one of the things that was released yesterday by the Wheel of Time official Twitter account as a bunch of images. It was this box opening, and I showcased this image in a video day before yesterday, rather, and inside there is the Horn of Valere, so this has the same mechanism, same carving that the accepted testing chamber had. And when we guessed that this was High Lord Turok behind him, same armor, same fingernails, same hand. The costumes are gorgeous. Like, I just can't get over how well they look. And he opens it up, and of course inside here is the Horn of Valere. You can see scales on that. I'm going to say it's going to look a lot like a Great Serpent, and I think rather than the plain silver horn that it is in the series, it's probably going to look a lot more like the Aes Sedai ring, the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail as the horn. I would really love to see that. We haven't seen a good picture of the horn yet, but this is a good indication that it's probably going to look something like that, which is really very cool. Now, the other thing I want to talk about here at Turok is the scarring. The scarring that he has here. We've seen traditional facial tattoos. We've seen scarring. We've seen different things. The ear coverings or earrings they have. All of this is really, really intricate, and I can't wait to see how they handle all of it, if they explain it or if it's just going to be part of the Seanchan culture, because some of these things are a little bit different than we read about in the books, but I like them. Visually, it's really impactful, and you can tell they spent a lot of time in this costuming. Look at the intricacy in that rib cage, in the antlers and the bones around him. I'm pretty excited to see this on screen. I'll probably be repeating the second season quite a few times before I make my videos this fall. So Gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Props, hats off to the prop people. That's all I can say. Now, this here scene, I talked about the facial tattoos. You can see that in the Soul Dom to the left. That's a Dame in front there. Now, something interesting about this is that Dame has Terabon braids. So is she a captured Aes Sedai? Is she captured Chandler from this side of the ocean? Or is that just something that the Seanchan also have? I really don't know. I did notice that about it, though. And again, the weaves are coming from her forearms, the exact same spot that the bracelets are on the Soul Dom. And she is wearing that sort of mouthpiece to prevent her from talking or eating. That is not the... that is 100% not the collar, and I've heard some people call it a soother. It's not a soother. It's based on traditional, not traditional, based on historical, real-world things that were done to slaves. And I think, again, it's going to showcase the absolute brutality of the Seanchan, and that's something I think they're going to lean into, because they're going to want us to really, really dislike them. At the same time, later on, probably trying to make us empathize with them as well. It's going to be really interesting how they handle that. Now, this particular scene here, you can see various weaves. It looks to me like maybe air and fire, possibly, but this was the teaser that left out there, but it gives us a very good look at the collar. The collar is more of a shoulder, chest, and back piece than a simple plain collar. I like this look. I like the way it looks. I like the way they did it. And then, of course, she's blasting fire. Now, what you can't see here, and I tried to capture it in a still shot, is to the left here is the Waygate. In behind that blast is both Egwene and Elaine. So this is likely after Liandrin takes them out of the Waygate, like in the Great Hunt, and kind of gives them up to the Seanchan. Really very interesting. I think a scene that is going to be almost directly ripped from the books, and a huge nod and Easter egg to the fans of the book series. And it's going to be absolutely brutal to watch, but probably visually very stunning. We get a shot right after that of Egwene fighting back. Now, in the alt text that was released in this image on Twitter, it did say that Egwene was casting here. So this is not them shielding her. This is not the Soul Dom and the Dame actually wrapping her in weaves. This is her fighting back. So I think we get to see a bit of a struggle here between Egwene and the Seanchan before she is cut off from the true source. And in the background there, you can see Elaine just booking it, just running. Which is par for the course for Elaine for a good portion of the book series. She's running away here, which she did in the books. She did get away, and then of course they met up with the rest of the people in Falma and tried to rescue Egwene. So there's that. So we're going to see all of that in the second season, I think, which is really very neat. Now this Waygate that's behind them that you can't really see here, you can sort of see some of the structure to the left there, was a Waygate that they filmed in jungle in Morocco, and then all of the scenes for Falma were also filmed in Morocco. So this is likely just outside of Falma, and it is probably 100% the scene where Egwene gets captured. Really very neat. And I'm surprised they showed this as part of the promotional material, because to book fans, it's a big deal. To non-book fans, they wouldn't know what this is, but to us, to people who've read the series before, this is a huge deal. And I'm really happy that we're going to get to see this in season 2. Now this, I wanted to talk about this since I talked about Nynaeve's accepted test. This appears to be the Two Rivers. It is a barn in the background, and that appears to be Nynaeve there, dressed in stout Two Rivers wools, and she is just going completely Super Saiyan with the power. And she's crying here as well and upset, screaming. This is likely a part of her accepted test. Remember when she went through those arches and she had to deal with some pretty dark stuff? I think we're going to see that in the show. I think it's going to really showcase the dedication it requires to become an accepted in Aes Sedai. But I think these two shots are likely from her accepted test, and we're definitely going to get to see it in the second season, which makes me pretty happy. I don't know if they'll double down and let us see Egwene's and Elaine's as well. Egwene's was described in the books. I don't know if we'll see that or not, because they may only show it the once and then to show the aftermath of Egwene's later on. Either way, really excited to see this. Pretty happy that they're going to be doing this. Now, this is something else that's kind of confusing, and I want to hear your folks' thoughts on this. This is Liandrin, this is in the White Tower, and this is the exact same chamber that they used to melt Kareen Nagashi, Kareen Sedai's ring, in the first season after she died. Does this mean another Aes Sedai dies? I don't think so, because it's just Liandrin by herself. And this is what I think is happening here, that this is going to be the reveal that Liandrin is actually Black Aja that she is a dark friend. She is dropping her ring off. She's fully embracing the Dark One. And this is likely just before she leads the girls through the Waygate to Falma and kind of gives them up at the direction of Ishamael. That's my guess. Now, that is maybe a stretch, but I have no other information other than that, and I think that's what this is. Let me know in the comments down below what you folks think of this scene. I think it's likely that she's melting the ring because she's giving up being Aes Sedai and she's going fully to the dark side. I don't know. Let me know what you folks think. Now this is, in my opinion, pretty much a confirmation that we're getting some sort of flicker in the second season, because we have Perrin, and it's kind of a blurry shot, and I'm sorry about that, but we have Perrin chasing a child. Now, could this have been one of the what ifs? If Perrin and perhaps Egwene got together, or if Perrin and his wife that he killed in the very first episode of the first season lived and they have a family and they're happy together. Could this be one of those flicker moments? Maybe. I'm not 100% on this. I don't know if this means that they're going to be using a portal stone and we'll get the flicker that way, or if this means that we're going to see some sort of trap set, some sort of World of Dreams type trap where we get to see some sort of flicker. Either way, that's what I think this is. I think this is probably likely a version of Perrin's life where he has children, and I don't know who he's with or how that happens, but I think you'll get to see that, and it'll probably hurt him just a little bit more than everything he's already gone through. Either way, I want to say this is confirmation we're getting flicker, but I'm not 100% on that. Let me know what you folks think down below. Now, of course, we get another shot of Siuan and Moiraine, and I, for one, am excited to see another Fisherman's Hut scene. I like the idea that they're really showcasing their relationship, because they had this sort of relationship in the books, but it was pretty low-key. It wasn't focused upon, and it was in the past. I like that it's still ongoing, but it's going to make certain scenes within the second and probably the third season really impactful to the viewer, that involve the Amyrlin and Moiraine, and I can't wait to see those. But again, this is doubling down on their relationship. It's showcasing that they're still together, they're still working together, and they're still emotionally with one another as they're on this journey of trying to guide the Dragon Reborn. Either way, pretty excited that they're going to be including some of this stuff in the second season. And then, of course, we know for sure we're getting Egwene and Nynaeve in the tower. We've seen a number of shots with them and Elaine in the tower. So this, likely because they are still dressed in their regular clothes, is prior to them doffing all of their clothes and taking taking novice white rather, and before Nynaeve's accepted test. I think they're probably going to happen around the same time. Either way, I think we're going to get at least an episode or two of the tower with the girls learning the power, meeting Elaine, and doing mischievous stuff there. And maybe we'll get to meet Laris in the kitchens as well, which would be kind of neat because she's pretty important much later in the book series. Now, again, this appears to be a part of the accepted test. And there's Nynaeve. We see, I think that's Lyanna. I don't know who is behind her there, who that other Aes Sedai is. But remember when I mentioned earlier about Egwene standing there with the flows coming in from the left, right, and forward? I think this might be that she's part of the accepted test. She gets to witness it. She gets to be there for Nynaeve. I hope anyway. I think that would be very emotionally impactful for the screen. And it would be a good idea to kind of set everything up for when Egwene happens to do hers later, that we get to see her afterwards, because she'll have some idea of what she's going through. And this will help explain it all to people who really don't know what's happening because they haven't read the books. Again, another shot of Egwene, this time in novice white, along with Elaine. This is the only shot of Elaine, other than at the Waygate where she's booking it just into the jungle, that we've seen in the entire trailer. And I was kind of surprised they didn't showcase Elaine a little bit more in the trailer. And I was also a little bit surprised where I personally didn't see any new cast. Now, there might be some new cast, but I'm not 100% on that. I went through the trailer pretty closely and didn't see anyone I didn't recognize. So they did a good job editing that. There was no whoopsies as far as I understood, but we did get at least the little shot of Elaine here, which is nice. And if you don't know who she is, she's the daughter heir of Andor and one of Rand's love interests in the books. So really neat that we got to see her. And fun fact, I'm the one that broke her casting a few years ago. So there's that as well. Now, we get another shot of Moiraine here. This appears to be an inn along the road, or perhaps, and I'd love to see this as Van Dien's hut or Van Dien's house. I would love to think that she went there, and maybe it's not Van Dien, but maybe it's Varen Sedai, to get some knowledge or information on how to remove her block. Either way, the sets are gorgeous. The amount of detail just in these doors alone blows me away. Now, we get to see Aviendha in the trailer, which I'm excited for. So Aviendha, if you don't know who she is one of Rand's love interests in the books, and she's also an incredible fighter, and she is a very, very big part of the books from about book 3 on, right to the very end. She is a Maiden of the Spear, and here she is putting on the veil and just absolutely kicking ass. So we've seen this in the cold open of episode 7. It was my favorite part of the first season, where Tigraine Mantir, Rand's mom, fought a bunch of soldiers. We're going to see something similar here, because Tigraine was also a Maiden of the Spear. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that's Dane Bornhall, Jay Duffy in the background there, just getting his ass kicked by Aviendha. Either way, I think the fight scenes, especially with the Aiel, are going to be really iconic. And there's been a lot of talk around the fact that Aviendha may be the Aiel in the cage that Perrin saves for season 2, and she travels a lot with Perrin in the second season to follow him out, and that's where she meets up with everyone else, along with Bane and Chiad. Not 100% on that. We don't really have a ton of information on it, but this sort of matches that, where he lets her out, and then the White Cloaks attack, and they all kind of kick some ass. Now, again, another one of her just flipping around and kicking people in the head. I'm really excited to see the Aiel fight on screen. And if you don't know who is Aviendha, who plays Aviendha, it's Eula Smart. She was most recently in Cocaine Bear. She played one of the sheriffs in Cocaine Bear. She did a great job in that movie. It was Ray Liotta's last movie, and it was fantastic. If you like that type of movies, I'm a big B-movie buff. It wasn't quite a B-movie, but it was really, really good. I thought it was amazing. She's in that one. Check her out in that. Again, just the fight scenes with the Aiel are probably going to be pretty iconic, and this one does look to be, from the stills we've seen, where Perrin releases an Aiel from a cage. So likely is Aviendha. And again, she is veiled here, and I think, in my opinion, they couldn't have picked a better person to play Aviendha. I think she's going to absolutely just nail the role. She has that smoldering, just determination. And she has the physicality as well to play a Maiden of the Spear, so I'm pretty excited about that. Now, this one here, I couldn't get a non-blurry shot, but this we've seen a couple of different times in promotional materials and little clips and things like that. It's Nynaeve training with warders. I believe that's Maxima in the background there, which is one of Lannis' warders. I don't know who's in the front there with a sword, but I believe this is her training to fight, which totally makes sense if Moiraine loses her power for that long. Nynaeve wouldn't want to use the power to fight Moiraine, because let's face it, in the book series, Nynaeve was very against Moiraine for a very long time, and part of her motivation for learning to use the one power was so she could use it against Moiraine. If Moiraine doesn't have the ability to use the power, she wouldn't want to up her. She'd want to beat her with her own hands. That's just how Nynaeve is. So including a scene like this where she's training with the warders, training and learning, or showcasing her fighting skills rather, I think is right in line with her character in the show, because if Moiraine loses her power, she's not going to want to use the one power to humiliate her. She's going to want to use her own hands and take the satisfaction of one-upping Moiraine that way. Now, here's where we get to see what I believe is the fight scene between Lan and the Fades at night. We've seen a couple shots of Moiraine at night already, Moiraine on horseback at night. I think this is Moiraine, like I said earlier, had lost her ability to use one power, and then Lan is fighting two Fades at once, and you get to see him just like flipping around and kicking a Fade in the head. I really excited to see more of the fight scenes with Lan, because we got to see a lot of it in the first episode of the first season, but not as much as I would have liked after that. I want to see him showcasing his skills, and if Daniel Henney is excited about the scene where he fights two Fades, it's one of those things where I'm excited. I can't wait to see it, but I think this is likely from that same scene. Again, this shot here, likely Tower of Valon, likely at night. Really gorgeous, absolutely amazing. They did a great job with this. And then this one here, sorry about the bit in the middle there. When I took the screenshot, it kind of messed up a bit. But this is Liandrin. I think this is after she melts her ring, and she's kind of escaping the White Tower, leaving, going to the Waygate with the girls. I'm not 100% on that, but I would like to think that that's likely what this is, because she's all dressed up and kind of hiding. Now, Rand, we've seen a lot of shirtless bits of Rand throughout the last couple of months, and it's a great marketing tool, but this one here is where he's by himself in that inn, likely in the same scenes where he's learning or channeling unintentionally earlier on. And I've mentioned this a couple times before. We've seen a scene earlier in the trailer where Nynaeve was covered in blood. This is her likely exiting one of the archways, and you can see all of the weaves of the One Power through the archway. So that archway is stone and what looks to be scales carved into it, and all of that white, all of that is spirit that they're channeling into the archway. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. And she comes out covered in blood, which showcases the realism of what happens in there, because what happens in these archways actually happens. It's a version of the world of dreams, or perhaps a mirror world. They didn't really know in the books, and her coming out covered in blood, we're going to see a lot of that, I think, in the accepted test, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. Now, a lot of people complained in the first season that Perrin didn't get to kill any White Cloaks. Well, this shot from the trailer should put that to rest. He's going to kill some White Cloaks. He's definitely going to kill some White Cloaks in the second season. And this looks to be at night. I don't know 100% know which town this is in. I don't believe it's Falma, because the background doesn't match Falma's background. But if you folks know, let me know. But either way, you're definitely going to see Perrin kill a few White Cloaks. We don't see what he's holding, so I don't know if he has his axe or his hammer there, but he's definitely taking on some White Cloaks and likely killing a few of them here in the trailer. And this, we've already seen a shot of Egwene collared, covered in blood. This is her probably realizing it the first time she no longer has access to the power. Her life is no longer her own. She's completely collared. She can't move. She can't do anything without complete and utter permission. And that was a pretty emotionally charged scene in the books. On screen, I think it's going to work even better. But we're getting a lot of really cool stuff in this trailer that I didn't expect to get. I thought we would get a lot more generic, a lot more, one big reveal maybe, but we're getting a lot of really iconic scenes revealed. And then, of course, this shot of Rand tied to the wheel. This has been used in promotional material for a very, very long time. And the way it's zoomed in, especially from the trailer and from the reveal that they did on Twitter yesterday, I would say likely this is in Teleran Rioid. But I'm not 100% on that, and it's likely a play on that he's tied to the wheel. He's bound to the wheel. He's going to he has to do what the wheel says. I'm not 100% on that, but I think maybe, just maybe, that's what it is. Shot of Liandrin here talking to Nynaeve. This might be, or Egwene rather, I'm not quite sure which, talking to one of the girls either way, and this might be just prior to leaving the tower. And then this, we get to see Rand. He's wearing, of course, that coat that we saw earlier in the show, or in the trailer rather, with the rising sun in the background, and he's facing off against, this is Lord Turok. You can see here Lord Turok has a heron on his sword. So a lot of people complained about the fact that the heron wasn't a big deal in the first season. Here they are here, actively showcasing a heron on Turok's sword. This will be the big iconic fight scene, not quite the same as in the book, but the big iconic fight scene where Rand will actually fight and defeat a Blade Master on his own and earn the herons on his own sword. And of course, those retractable fingernails and that sword he pulls out, and that's going to lead right into that fight scene, I think, between Rand and Turok. And I think, I haven't seen the choreography for the one-on-one fights yet, but I'm hoping that they're even half as good as the big battles. I've seen a lot of choreography for the big battles, and they are absolutely amazing. I can't wait to see what they do with the one-on-one stuff. Again, we've seen this scene before in promotional material with Turok facing off the Seanchan soldiers against Rand, and I really, really hope the one-on-one choreography is on point, and I think it's going to be, because the big battle scenes, like I said earlier, were absolutely amazing. Now, remember when I said that they zoomed into Rand on this wheel? Well, these are the shots of it here in the trailer, so I think that's why I thought this might be Teleran Rioid, might be a little bit, and I think who we see in front of him there sort of kind of reinforces that. That looks a lot like Surath's costume. I couldn't really get a better shot of it than this, but that looks like someone who's wearing the same clothing as Surath. And let's face it, Lanfear or Shamael, or pretty much anyone who's versed in the world of dreams, can look like whoever they want. I don't believe this is a real world shot of Rand on a wheel in the desert being tortured or anything like that. I think this is likely a World of Dreams shot where he is being explained that he's bound to the wheel, and he's going to keep doing this fight over and over again forever, because they're going to really lean into that stuff in the show. We didn't really get much of that in the book series until much later. I think they're going to start describing that way earlier, especially with the Horn of Valere, how the heroes of the Horn are bound to the wheel. They can be blown, the horn can be blown and they can come out. I think that's all going to be explained, and this is probably one of the explainers for that. Now, of course, they had to end the trailer on this. A lot of people were talking about Rand's iconic fire sword. I think this is the scene with Rand with his iconic fire sword that he uses throughout the book series, rather than using the massive amounts of power at his disposal. He's probably crafted his sword of fire here, and he is killing a Fade with it. This is likely, in my opinion, where he rescues Selene. She sets all of this up. I've said this a number of times before. Likely they're going to meet on the road, and he's going to rescue her from Shadowspawn, rather than going to the Mirror World and rescuing her from a Grolm. She's going to play the damsel in distress against a Fade or two or some Trollocs, and he'll use the fire sword to take her out, or to rescue her, take them out, and that's how she'll kind of get her claws into him, so to speak. So that's the breakdown of the trailer. Like I said, it was a pretty long one. We went through it frame by frame. I gave my thoughts on every single piece that was there, every little Easter egg, every little nitpicky thing that was happening in the trailer. Let me know what you folks think down below in the comments section. Is there something I missed? Is there something you want me to talk about more? My favorite part of the entire trailer, bar none, and it can't get much better than this, is Rand and his fire sword at the very end. I think that's part of the reason they left it for the very end. I saw that and I cheered. I mean, I couldn't help it. I cheered, but there were a ton of things in this trailer. And like I said earlier, I was shocked they gave us so much. I thought that perhaps, just perhaps, we'd get one big scene, the rest of it would sort of be filler, and that they'd save the rest of it for later. No, we got some meat in this trailer. There's a whole lot of really big iconic scenes, and it gave us a little bit more information with the second season. Again, in my opinion, I don't think it gave us any new cast, but we got to see Lanfear on screen for the first time prior to any official announcement, by the way. It's not a thing that happened. They haven't officially announced Natasha O'Keefe as Lanfear yet, so we just know that she's in that scene. She's dressed in blue. It's Lanfear. There's no doubt in my mind, but no official announcement yet. Some really cool stuff here, but let me know your favorite moment in the entire trailer down below, and let me know your thoughts on it as well. And it's real. And not long ago, actually, the Wheel of Time just tweeted that Wat Wednesdays are back. Expect to see weekly Wat Wednesday content from the Wheel of Time official Twitter account on Twitter. And I know not everybody's a big fan of Twitter or has Twitter accounts. I'll show it here on the channel. Don't worry. Every Wednesday I'll do a video on what they're going to release. We'll talk about it here on the channel, and I'll break it down for you folks. All right. Thank you so very much for sticking with me here to the very end. Here's to many more.